Open your refrigerator right now. Go on, picture it. Somewhere in there is a container of last night's rice, a few pieces of chicken from Sunday's meal prep, maybe a bowl of spinach or a couple of boiled eggs you made for a quick breakfast. Now here's the question that should stop you in your tracks. What if the act of warming that food back up is quietly working against your health one meal at a time? That is not a scare tactic. It is a question backed by decades of published research in food chemistry and cancer biology, and almost nobody talks about it in plain language. Today, that changes. Here's a number worth memorizing. 1 in 6. That's roughly the share of cancer cases worldwide that scientists now link, at least in part, to what we eat and how we eat it, including how our food is stored and reheated before it reaches our plate. Diet-related factors are considered one of the most significant modifiable contributors to cancer risk on the planet, trailing only tobacco use. And yet, the specific chemistry of reheating leftovers barely gets a mention anywhere. That chemistry is invisible. There is no smell that warns you, no taste that changes dramatically, no visual cue on your plate. The reactions happen at a molecular level, inside the food, and then inside your cells, completely undetected. By the time there's a symptom, decades may have passed. I'm a physician with a research background in nutritional biochemistry, and for more than 15 years I've studied what heat, storage, and repeated cooking do to the food we eat every single day. Not exotic foods, not junk food. Ordinary staples. The ones dietitians recommend, the ones bodybuilders swear by, the ones parents pack into school lunches because they believe they're doing the right thing. In the next several minutes, I'm going to walk you through 4 everyday foods that undergo measurable, scientifically documented chemical changes when they're reheated. Changes that carry a real, studied connection to cancer risk. Stick with me to the end, because the final food on this list is one that almost everyone assumes is completely harmless. It isn't quite as simple as you think. Before we get into specifics, I want to be clear about the scale of what we're discussing. This isn't about a stomach ache from bad leftovers or a one-off case of food poisoning. Those are real risks too, but they're not the focus here. What we're talking about is a slow, cumulative exposure. Small amounts of harmful compounds building up over months and years, quietly nudging your cells toward dysfunction. Cancer is almost never the result of a single event. It's a long, layered process, and the raw materials for that process, free radicals, advanced glycation end products, nitrosamines, oxidized lipids, are frequently generated not in a factory or from cigarette smoke, but on your own stovetop. The World Health Organization has classified a number of compounds formed during the reheating of certain foods as either confirmed or probable human carcinogens. Confirmed means the evidence linking the substance to cancer in humans is considered conclusive. Probable means the evidence is strong but not yet exhaustive. Either way, these are not fringe theories. They are documented. Outcomes of ordinary kitchen chemistry repeated in millions of homes every single day. And here's the part that should really get your attention. The people most exposed to this risk aren't reckless eaters. They're the opposite. They're the health-conscious crowd. The ones eating lean proteins, whole grains, leafy greens, and eggs precisely because they're trying to do things right. Those 4 categories, rice, chicken, spinach, and eggs, are exactly what we're going to break down today. Before we dive in, a quick word on where this information comes from. Because in a world full of wellness influencers making things up, as they go, you deserve to know the receipts exist. My training is in internal medicine, followed by fellowship-level work in nutritional biochemistry. My research has centered on how cooking methods, storage duration, and repeated heat exposure alter the molecular structure of proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, and how the resulting byproducts interact with human cells and DNA. Every claim in this video draws from peer-reviewed research published in journals like Food Chemistry, the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry, Carcinogenesis, and the Lancet Oncology. I'm not selling a supplement. I'm not pushing a course. This is simply information that deserves to be common knowledge and currently isn't. Now, a short but essential detour into food chemistry, because without it, the rest of this video won't make sense. When food is cooked for the first time, heat triggers predictable, largely beneficial reactions. Proteins unfold and become digestible. Starches gelatinize and soften. Fats emulsify into the flavors we love. This is cooking working exactly as intended. The trouble starts on the second pass, when previously cooked food, especially food that's spent hours or days sitting in the refrigerator, gets reheated, a different set of reactions kicks in, and none of them are as friendly. The first is oxidation. Fats and proteins exposed to oxygen during storage become chemically unstable. Reheat them, and those already weakened molecules break down. Further into substances called lipid peroxides and malondialdehyde, both well documented for their capacity to damage DNA. The second is a distorted version of something you'd normally celebrate, the Maillard reaction, the same chemistry responsible for the golden crust on bread and D, the deep flavor of a seared steak. But when proteins and sugars are hit with high heat over and over, that reaction can also generate advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. These compounds are strongly linked to chronic low-grade inflammation, which happens to be one of the primary biological engines behind cancer development. The third is nitrite conversion. Certain foods, particularly those naturally rich in nitrates, undergo a bacterial transformation while sitting in the fridge. Reheating converts those E-nitrates into nitrites, and nitrites can go on to form nitrosamines, compounds the World Health Organization lists among probable or confirmed carcinogens. 3 mechanisms: oxidation, glycation, and nitrosamine formation. Hold onto those terms because you'll see them resurface again and again as we go through each food. Let's start with the one nearly every household on Earth deals with: rice. Rice feeds more than 3 billion people as their primary calorie source, and leftover rice gets reheated constantly in nearly every culture, almost as a matter of habit. But the danger here has surprisingly little to do with the microwave itself, and everything to do with what happens to the rice while it's sitting in your fridge between the first cooking and the second. As cooked rice cools, it becomes a near-perfect breeding ground for a bacterium called Bacillus cereus. This isn't some rare contaminant. It's naturally present in raw rice grains, survives the initial boiling, and multiplies rapidly if the rice is left at room temperature or stored improperly. When you reheat that rice, the heat can kill the bacteria itself, but it does nothing to neutralize the heat-stable toxins those bacteria have already released. Those toxins pass straight through cooking and land intact in your digestive system. While the acute bacterial illness risk from this is well known, the cancer-relevant piece is less discussed. One of the toxins Bacillus cereus produces, cereulide, has been shown in laboratory research to damage mitochondria, the energy-producing structures inside human cells. Mitochondrial dysfunction is considered one of the early biological events that can nudge a healthy cell down the path toward malignant transformation. There's a second separate concern layered on top of this. Repeatedly heating starchy foods like rice increases the formation of acrylamide, a compound produced when natural sugars react with the amino acid. Asparagine under high heat. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies acrylamide as probably carcinogenic to humans. So what's the fix? It's simpler than it sounds. Cook rice fresh whenever you reasonably can. When you do need to store leftovers, spread the rice out on a shallow tray right after cooking so it cools quickly, get it into the fridge within an hour, eat it within 24 hours, and never reheat the same batch more than once. It's worth pausing here to underline why rice trips people up so often. Unlike a piece of meat, rice doesn't look, smell, or taste obviously different after a day in the fridges. So there's no natural warning signal telling you something has shifted. That's part of what makes this such a widespread invisible habit rather than a rare mistake. The food gives you no reason to be cautious, even though the biology underneath it has already changed. Now let's move to something almost every health-focused eater treats as a default protein: chicken. Chicken is the world's go-to lean protein. It shows up in meal prep containers and dietitian-approved meal plans and bodybuilding diets. And whatever's left over, almost always. This isn't speculation dreamed up for a video. The European Food Safety Authority has issued formal guidance on dietary nitrate and nitrite exposure from vegetables, specifically flagging the risks tied to reheating nitrate-rich produce after storage. There's a real irony in that. One of the healthiest foods on the planet can become a source of carcinogenic compounds simply because of a storage habit millions of well-intentioned people repeat every week. The solution is refreshingly simple. Cook leafy greens fresh and eat them right away whenever you can. If you have leftovers, eat them cold within a few hours rather than reheating. If you must store cooked spinach, keep it in an airtight container, consume it within 6 hours, and skip the reheating step entirely. Eat it cold instead. It's easy to see how this one slips under the radar too. Spinach carries such a strong health halo that it feels almost counterintuitive to question how it's stored, which is exactly why so few people ever apply the same caution to it that they might apply to raw meat or dairy. And now, the food that closes this list, the one that catches people off guard because it's almost universally considered a safe bet: eggs. Eggs are about as close to a perfect food as nutrition science gets. They provide all 9 essential amino acids, a strong dose of choline for brain function, selenium for antioxidant defense, and lutein and zeaxanthin for eye and cellular health. By almost every nutritional metric, eggs deserve their reputation. But reheating them, especially scrambled eggs or hard-boiled eggs, sets off a specific chemical problem that rarely makes it into everyday health conversations. Eggs are roughly 13% fat, and most of that fat sits in the yolk. The first time an egg is cooked, that yolk fat undergoes an initial, fairly mild round of oxidation, completely normal and expected. But refrigerate that cooked egg and reheat it later at high temperature, and those already oxidized fats undergo a much faster, secondary round of oxidation. The resulting byproducts, including malondialdehyde and oxysterols, are well documented in the scientific literature. Oxysterols in particular have drawn serious scientific attention over the last decade. These are oxidized forms of cholesterol that form specifically when cholesterol-containing foods are repeatedly heated. A comprehensive review published in Food and Chemical Toxicology concluded that oxysterols carry pro-inflammatory, cell-damaging, and, critically, genotoxic properties. Genotoxic is the key word here. It means damaging to genetic material, to your DNA. By definition, genotoxic compounds are considered potential carcinogens because they're capable of causing DNA strand breaks and mutations, the earliest steps in the long chain of events that can eventually lead to cancer. There's a second layer to this as well. When cooked egg proteins are hit with high heat a second time, particularly in a microwave, they undergo further denaturation, forming abnormal crosslinks that are harder for your digestive system to break down. Some research also suggests that the sulfur-containing amino acids in eggs, cysteine and methionine, can degrade under repeated heating, and the breakdown products may contribute to oxidative stress in the lining of the digestive tract. That kind of chronic oxidative stress in the gut lining is considered one of the proposed mechanisms behind colorectal cancer, the third most common cancer worldwide, responsible for close to 1 million deaths every year. The fix is straightforward. Eat eggs fresh whenever possible. If you're prepping in advance, store hard-boiled eggs with the shell on and eat them cold rather than reheating. Skip microwaving scrambled eggs or omelets altogether. If you absolutely need to warm an egg-based dish, use gentle, indirect heat, a warm water bath, or a very low oven, and try not to push it past 165 degrees Fahrenheit. I want to be honest about something. The first time I sat down and worked through the research on nitrosamine formation, heterocyclic amines, and oxysterols in DE tail, my initial reaction wasn't fear. It was frustration. This information isn't buried in some obscure archive. It's published in peer-reviewed journals, referenced in official guidance from the European Food Safety Authority and the World Health Organization, and cited by public health agencies around the world. And yet, it almost never makes it to an actual kitchen table, translated into something a busy person can actually use. Billions of people reheat food every day, not out of carelessness, but simply because nobody has ever handed them this information in a usable form. There are kids eating reheated rice, spinach, and eggs in school lunches 5 days a week. There are older adults living alone, reheating leftover chicken because it's the easiest option available. There are fitness-focused people eating the same batch-cooked protein containers for days, convinced they're optimizing their health, while the food itself has quietly changed on a molecular level since it was first prepared. None of these people are doing anything wrong. They just haven't had access to this information until now. So let's bring it all together. 4 everyday foods, 4 distinct biological mechanisms, 1 consistent theme. How you handle food after it's cooked matters just as much as how you cook it in the first place. Rice. Reheating can reactivate heat-stable bacterial toxins from Bacillus cereus and promote acrylamide formation through repeated high heat exposure. The mechanisms are bacterial toxin activity and acrylamide generation, with potential links to mitochondrial dysfunction and exposure to a probable carcinogen. Chicken. Reheating at high heat drives the formation of heterocyclic amines through protein oxidation, alongside lipid oxidation, byproducts. The mechanism is protein and lipid oxidation, with potential links to direct DNA damage and elevated colorectal and pancreatic cancer risk. Spinach and other leafy greens. Refrigeration allows bacteria to convert natural nitrates into nitrites, and reheating can push those nitrites toward nitrosamine formation. The mechanism is nitrate to nitrite to nitrosamine conversion, with potential links to gastric, esophageal, and colorectal cancer. Eggs. Repeated heating of yolk fat and cholesterol produces oxysterols with documented genotoxic activity, along with secondary lipid oxidation products. The mechanism is cholesterol and lipid oxidation, with potential links to DNA damage, digestive tract oxidative stress, and colorectal cancer risk. 3 biochemical threads run through all 4. Nitrosamine formation, protein and lipid oxidation, and the activation of bacterial toxins. None of this is fear-mongering. It's food chemistry that has been studied, replicated, and confirmed across a substantial body of peer-reviewed research. So here's what I actually want you to do with all of this. Nothing drastic, nothing expensive, no supplements required. Just a handful of small, informed habits that can meaningfully reduce your long-term exposure to these compounds. Cook rice fresh when you can. If you're storing it, cool it within an hour. Refrigerate it right away. Eat it within a day. And never reheat the same batch twice. Eat leftover chicken cold whenever that's an option. And if you do reheat it, keep the temperature as low as effectively possible. Skip reheating spinach, H and other nitrate-rich greens entirely. Eat them cold or cook them fresh, and never store them longer than about 6 hours before eating. Eat eggs fresh, store any hard-boiled extras unpeeled, and eat them cold, and never microwave scrambled eggs or omelets. A food thermometer is a worthwhile investment here. Keeping reheating under 165 degrees Fahrenheit noticeably reduces the formation of many of these compounds compared to blasting food on high heat. As a general rule, never reheat any food more than once. One cooking, one reheat, and then it's time to let it go. Where you can, choose a low oven over a microwave for reheating protein-rich foods, since microwaves tend to create uneven hotspots that can accelerate oxidation. And perhaps the single most effective change of all, cook portions that match what you'll actually eat fresh, so leftovers become the exception rather than the rule. Before you go, I'd genuinely like to know, which of these 4 surprised you the most? Was it rice, the food almost nobody thinks twice about reheating? Was it chicken, the protein practically everyone treats as the safest choice on the plate? Was it spinach, the vegetable every health expert tells you to eat more of? Or was it eggs, the food you probably assumed was completely risk-free? Drop your answer in the comments, and if there's a food you eat and reheat often that you'd like examined next, let me know that too. These comments genuinely shape what gets researched next. One last thought before we wrap up. Think of someone in your life who reheats leftovers without a second thought. A parent, a sibling, a roommate living on meal-prepped chicken and rice, a partner who microwaves the same spinach dish all week, a friend who reheats scrambled eggs every morning after batch cooking on Sunday. They don't have this information yet. You can change that in under 10 seconds by sending them this video, not to alarm them, not to lecture them, but simply to give them the same knowledge you now have because they deserve the chance to make an informed choice too. And finally, a necessary note. Everything covered here is meant for educational purposes and reflects findings published in peer-reviewed scientific literature at the time this was put together. It is not personal medical advice, a diagnosis, or a treatment recommendation, and nutrition science continues to evolve as new research emerges. If you're considering meaningful changes to your diet, especially with an existing health condition, please talk to your physician or a registered dietitian first. The goal here has never been to replace your doctor or to make you afraid of food. It's to put the same evidence available to researchers and public health professionals directly into your hands because you deserve nothing less than clear, accurate information about your own health.